Hey guys, Pastor Sean coming to you with today's daily devotion. I want to talk to you. We're still on the subject of the mind of Christ. Christ met people at their darkest point. He met them at the pressure point of life. He met them at the breaking point of life. Some people he even met at a suicidal point. And that seems to be when Christ walked into most situations. Let's look at some of them. The Bible says that the man who was among the tombs was full of multiple legions of demons. He was fully possessed with demons, but when Christ cast those demons out, and that man was later found clothed and in his right mind. So while he was in the tombs, he was out of his mind. He was crazy. He would rip the chains off of him. That they would put chains on him, and he'd rip the chains off and would run through the graveyard, through the cemetery, terrorizing people, attacking people, and just out of his mind, crazy. And Christ comes into his situation, heals him, delivers him, sets him free, and he's found at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. I love that. I love that. The Samaritan woman, the Shunammite woman, not the Samaritan, the Shunammite woman, whose daughter is possessed with a demon. And Christ comes to her, and she comes to Christ, and he ignores her. He ignores her completely. The disciples say, hey, man, send her away, do something. And he calls her a dog. He says, is it right to take the children's bread and give it to the dogs? And she says, yes, Lord, but even the little dogs. She understood her position in the Jewish hierarchy. She understood that the Samaritans were dogs. And she says, yes, Lord, but even the dogs beg for the crumbs that fall from the master's table. So the Samaritan woman is there at a breaking point, and Christ heals her child, heals her daughter, sets her free, makes her whole. And then we see, of course, Mary and Martha. Mary and Martha have buried their brother. They have buried Lazarus. He is dead. And not just dead, but dead. 4 days dead. The Jews believed that the spirit would hang around the body for 3 days, and then on the 4th day, decay would set in, and the spirit would go back to God from where it came. That was just an old wives' tale and an old philosophy that the Jews held on to. So Jesus waited 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and says, hey, boys, let's go. He's been dead 4 days. We can go now, because now everybody that's sitting there in that graveyard are past the point of rescue. They all think that it's over. There is no hope. They're beyond desperation. They are living in a state of failure now, and they don't believe God can do anything. And Christ rolls in. Lazarus, come forth. And he comes out of the grave, and they say, loose him and let him go. They take the grave clothes off of him, and he comes out of there alive. And he goes on, and you read more about him in the New Testament there. You see him later eating with Jesus. And many people believe he was there on the day of Pentecost. And so a lot of things happen at desperation point, at the breaking point. And so my question tonight is, where are we meeting people at? Because the people who need us the most are the people that are the closest to breaking, the people that are the closest to failure, the people that are the closest to desperation. I walked underneath a bridge in Rome, had mud almost up to my knees. Walked under the bridge there carrying a box of food. And I walked down the side of the creek there and got to the point to where there was an old ratty tent. And I knocked on the outside of the tent, and the guy crawled out with an army jacket on. And he said, what do you want? And I said, I've brought you some food. And I sat there and I talked with him and I prayed with him. And he was at a point of desperation, a point of breaking. And as I began to minister to him, began to talk with him, I didn't talk to him about the way he was dressed. I didn't talk about the way his hair was cut. I didn't talk about the tattoos on his arms. I didn't talk about any of that. I talked to him about Jesus Christ. And as he crawled out of that tent and sat there and talked with me, right there on the side of the creek. I began to minister to him, and the lady that was with us began to talk to him about getting out of that tent and getting into a home. And within 3 months, he was living in an apartment, had a job, and was back on his feet, had groceries in his refrigerator. I'm not saying that to brag on me, I'm bragging on God, because God puts us in situations where people are ready to crack. They're ready to break. They are desperate for God, and we have to introduce them to God. Christ went into their situations, and he didn't tell them about how righteous the Pharisees were, or how hypocritical the Sadducees were, or why weren't you at Mass the other day? Why didn't you come to the Vacation Bible School? He didn't ask any of those questions. He met them at their need of desperation. He prayed with them. He held their hands. He healed their bodies. He did whatever they needed done at the point of desperation. So my question is to you today, where are you meeting people at? Everybody has a desperation point. Everybody has a breaking point. Everybody has a need in their life. But our job is to say, how can I pray for you today? How can I help you today? And watch Christ become evident in your life, right there on the job site, right there in the school building, right there at the bank, right there at Walmart, right there at the doctor's office, right there in your office. God can manifest himself. Through your hands, Christ can be exalted. I love you. I'm praying for you. Reach out and find that person who's at a breaking point and help them find Christ, and watch what God will do. Again, I love you. I'm praying for you. I will see you again tomorrow. God bless you as always, is my prayer.